Sayar G, welcome back to the broadcast, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
You know, how did censorship evolve during the Biden administration, and why did it all of a sudden escalate now?
So, with the Biden administration, we saw essentially the government laundering free speech suppression through big tech companies. And so that's something that was recently exposed when Alphabet's CEO sent Jim Jordan a letter a month ago stating that they knew it was wrong, they did it anyway, and that they were going to make amends. So they've actually already helped to restore several prominent people's accounts who were critical of government narratives at the time of the COVID lockdowns.
So, what kinds of voices and content were suppressed the most, Sayar?
Anything critical of election integrity, anything that dissented from things like masking children or concerns about informed consent related to the mRNA vaccines, and really anything that was heterodox. So in other words, you just had to have one narrative, which of course the media largely outside of incredible independent news organizations like yourself parroted the party line, which was essentially corporate interests really using the government as a cheerleader for a lot of their products that were not actually safe at the time.
So, did the government lean on private technology companies, Sayar?
Absolutely. We now see after Elon acquired X, well, Twitter at the time, it became X, he actually blew the whistle on his own acquisition. And because of the Twitter files and subsequently the Facebook files, the Amazon files, and a lot of disclosures from lawsuits like Missouri versus Biden, we now see the picture clearly, which is the government used intimidation tactics to essentially induce and or coerce big tech companies to violate our most fundamental constitutional rights, especially the First Amendment.
What do you say to the 6 former Surgeon Generals who labored the Secretary of HHS, Bobby Kennedy, as endangering public health across the board?
Well, it's very interesting to the public, for example, who broadly supported Bobby's confirmation. So we had a huge grassroots movement to get him into that position because under their leadership, we have had the most dire of all acceleration of the chronic disease epidemic, with our children being the most primarily affected by their poor decision making on behalf of we the people. So ultimately, I think that it's clear from the outside in that relative to what Bobby's trying to do, which is to reform and to challenge a lot of the long held beliefs around pharmaceuticals being the first line of treatment for pretty much everything, that ultimately we can expect he would cause criticism among those who actually didn't do a great job in that position themselves.
Why is he getting so much criticism from public health experts and medical associations, Sayar? Is there something deeper going on here?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is valid. I think people are truly concerned about things like questioning whether vaccines save millions of lives by promoting the concept that we need transparency and we need gold standard science. Many people don't understand that there is no saline placebo-controlled trial for a single vaccine in the schedule today, and they've never done synergistic toxicology studies on the whole schedule. So when Bobby raises these very basic questions, it's actually just very commonsensical, and it's on behalf of so many parents who saw their children damaged from these interventions and yet were gaslit and told they were crazy and even worse, dangerous, because they're asking these questions about things that they've experienced directly. So I think that essentially America's ready for the leadership of Secretary Kennedy, and that a lot of what we're seeing in the media is actually a combination of well-meaning individuals that really do care about the health of this country, but some of it is actually astroturfing, where they're popping up organizations that don't really have a grassroots base because this is how it's done.
What do you say to those that say that the secretary is anti-science and he wants to dismantle public health institutions?
Well, I think the public has grown disgusted by these tropes such as safe and effective and trust the science, when science is a methodology. It's a method of inquiry to disclose phenomena in a very deliberate and very logical, rational way. What the American public was basically forced to accept as science was blind faith in a medical establishment that many believed were doing right by them. But we all saw through what happened during the declared pandemic that public health went down a dark spiral. Suicide rates climbed to their highest levels, and generally the health of the public declined. And that's why Bobby is in the position he is in today, because we wanted him there, and he is doing a good job.
How are the reductions in the workforce and the cuts in funding impacting the health and welfare of Americans and the agency itself?
That's a good question. I mean, I believe that at this point, the public is going through dramatic changes, as well as obviously HHS. And there are a lot of factors to this. I mean, if you just look at the fact that AI is taking out tons of jobs. Today, Amazon announced 30,000, corporate level jobs completely vaporized. So it's hard to really look at some of the changes without looking at the larger context, which is that humanity is going through some dramatic shifts right now.
That is a fact. What does the American public still not know, Sarah, about pandemic era decision making?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of us had to realize the hard way that those we believed were really there to protect us and the public's health were doing things that were actually very unconstitutional, such as former Surgeon General Vivek Murthy was found through the Facebook files to have really told Meta that they needed to not report on stories of vaccine injury and deaths because he's concerned it would cause vaccine hesitancy. So we understand where he was coming from, but that violates our basic rights. We should have informed medical choice, and people should be able to share their stories of vaccine injury openly if that's the truth. And that was a deliberate act, and I don't agree with it. And I think that that's why Bobby is in the position he is in today. Americans want to have trust in their government, but we need a new start, and that's what he represents.
30 seconds, your final thoughts.
Well, my final thoughts are this, is that MAHA is a nonpartisan movement. It is focused on the most fundamental constitutional principles that made our country and our government what it is today. So at this point in time, I believe MAHA is actually an incredible force for good, and that it's essentially something that we can all get behind because we care about our children, we care about our health, and it's very basic advocacy. We should be able to choose what happens to our body and know what the consequences are for all the medications that we're told are, quote, safe and effective.